Yes, we're back live inside the game, episode 207. Welcome back in the horns, the introductory horns as they're known. Nate Wangler alongside Ryan Glinsky. Another episode here on Inside the Game. As always, appreciate you guys stopping by again Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. First hour, soccer hour. Ryan, we're talking a lot about, obviously, Man United. We're going to talk about them here today. Got a pretty busy show. Real Madrid fired their manager. Another manager got sacked. Alonso is out at Real Madrid. We're also going to talk about some of the issues as it pertains to the FIFA World Cup. Now, FIFA has had their issues in the past, and we're going to talk a lot about that too. You know, Brazil, Qatar, obviously everything that's going on in the United States right now. It just seems like there's a long list of places in which FIFA has had their tournament where things are not going all too well. And obviously with the way the country is right now, just kind of an interesting question. Plus ticket prices. You know, you and I talked about that quite a bit. We're also going to talk about FIFA approving betting partners to stream games here in hour number 1. But I wanted to work this in really quickly because I know you and I were chatting about this yesterday, maybe getting a few different people on to do interviews. And you are actually going to have one of the Mac Herman Trophy Award winners on our show here on the National Soccer Network on Inside the Game. So I'll give you the floor. Tell the people a little bit about what's coming up and what we got moving and shaking here on NSN.
The women's winner from Stanford, Jasmine Aiki. Well, I will have to ask the correct pronunciation before we go on tomorrow. But yeah, she'll be joining the show here at some point. 6:50 our time is when she plans on being on the show. 3:50 their time, obviously. That's the only bad part about interviewing someone that is on the West Coast is you might not get the time that you want to interview someone just because of the 3-hour time difference. But no, we're happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. I got some good questions lined up, and we'll have to go from there. And it should be a good interview. We'll have that posted. That full interview will be posted, I'm sure, on Roku, YouTube, all that fun stuff. And then there'll be a couple clips about any certain things that we like to clip. So just make sure you follow us, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and you'll stay up to date with all that stuff and more.
Of course, that'll be an NSN exclusive here on Inside the Game, so we'll make sure we get that out to you guys. Again, you can find it on YouTube and wherever else on social media. And obviously, you already got to talk to Jamie Clark from Washington, as well as, I believe, Richie Amon. You got to chat with him as well. It wasn't him? Who was it?
Harrison Bertos.
Harrison Bertos. There we
Not
go. Thank you. All right, but you got to talk to both of those guys. What did you take away from those conversations? Because I remember you doing those NSN exclusives in the month of December, and obviously we took a break from our show, but now we're back now. It's always interesting with the West Coast time difference. I don't know if you've ever been to the West Coast before. I don't know if you've ever traveled out there.
Vegas is as far as I've gotten west.
Really? Okay, so that's still 3 hours. That's still 3 hours behind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking so. Okay, so the time difference really messes with you. Like, you wouldn't think it really messes with you all that much, but believe you me, it does. But eventually you catch up to it. But obviously our show at 9 a.m. would be at 6 a.m. for those people. So it might be a little bit harder for them to come around to something like that or be able to be ready for something like that. Plus, you know, it's postseason. So we're going to give them a chance to obviously rest up and do everything they need to do. But what did you take away from those conversations with obviously Washington's reps and what they were able to do?
It was mainly what happened after Harry scored the goal. And, you know, there was that little VAR check, what was going through everyone's head, if they actually scored a goal or not. The security tackling Harry's family as they tried to get on the field. I thought that was kind of funny. A little messed up. And then also just, you know, because they struggled a little bit towards the end of the season, and they had to go through a little bit of a gauntlet to even get to the national championship game. I think they played 3 or 4 ranked teams because, you know, in the NCAA Soccer Cup, that it is, you know, not everyone is ranked. I think there's only 16 ranked teams, and the rest are just thrown in. And Washington was one of the teams that weren't ranked. They struggled they had some bad form coming into the tournament after being, a hot start. And, just seeing how they regrouped, how they got back together as one, and that's exactly what they did. And they get back, score a goal, and then just even talking to Coach Clark about, his philosophy a little bit, as a guy who's been there for, I think it's been 15 plus years or something like that. It's at least been over a decade, I would say. And just, what he, what alumni have gotten back out to him, reaching out to him again. And then, just finally winning that national championship after you've been to a spot for so long, and trying to knock on the door year in, year out. They finally do it. And then also first national championship in school history, that's also worth mentioning. And then also just about the recruiting process for both player and coach, and all that fun stuff. And then even got to talk to Michael Meacham of the Midwestern State down in Texas, who won the D2 national championship. Just talking about him, of a program that has been around the Final Four, the Elite Eight, for 4 straight years, and finally knocking on the door and asking, what they did differently and what they were looking for in terms of their goal to goals given up ratio. I've never heard that before, and he mentioned that, and I thought that was a really, really good thing. And I also asked, so when Midwestern State got back to, I forgot what city they're from, Wichita Falls. When they got back to Wichita Falls, what was it like? Because when you get there, there's hundreds and hundreds of people just waiting for you to come back, and he thought that was pretty cool. And then the other thing was what's it like bigger in Texas soccer version? And he gave me a pretty good explanation. And no, it was a really good thing. Both really good interviews, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow as well.
One of my favorite U.S. men's national team players of all time, Clint Dempsey. Mr. Clint Dempsey, Mr. Swagger himself, is from Texas, South Texas. So there's obviously a healthy soccer culture down there. That's fascinating that's Washington's first national championship. It's crazy to consider, because they've had a lot of really good programs, really good teams over the years. Obviously, remember like football, they went to the final, played against Michigan when they had Michael Penix, and they've had a lot of really good years in football in years past, and they've had other really successful teams. But sometimes that's all it takes, is just winning the first one, and then that just kind of opens the floodgates. I'm old enough to remember when Fair State, we talk a lot about them, especially on the football side of the aisle, but their first national championship was not a football national championship. It was a basketball national championship. Oddly enough, it was a Cornerstone grad that led them to that championship, Andy Bronkema, who's now at obviously at Central Michigan. He's going to lead a revive. Believe me, he's going to have that. He's going to turn that program into a winner. Just give him time. But
by the way, shout out to him. He just got his first MAC win this past weekend
against
Kent State.
Yeah, and a grinded out win at that. But sometimes that's all it takes for a program. You win your first national championship, and it just seems like things kind of build off of that. Now, I'm not saying that Washington football is going to turn into the Fair State of Division I, but what I will say is that that's a big deal. That's a big deal for a school like that, and that's a major program out that direction. I mean, you think about, obviously, the Pac-12, that used to be, they were one of the teams like that in the Pac-12. That's the Big Ten of the East or the West. So anyways, so cool to see them succeed. Obviously, we'll get you guys more information on those conversations as we draw near to those conversations. My guess is they're going to be pre-recorded, and then we'll probably air them here on the podcast, unless you plan on going live. Not sure what your plan is there,
but real quick, Coach Bronkman said I had a walk-on spot on the basketball team. I'm still waiting on that offer, Coach Bronx. I'm still available. I still have my 4 IM championships from Central Michigan, so I'm still open. I'm still open for my walk-on spot. If it's still there, I will help. I will help guide this team to an NCAA tournament. I'm just saying. What position do you play?
Oh,
I'd be point guard, obviously.
Point guard? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just didn't know. I mean, you're not as vertically inclined as like maybe a 3 or a 4, but you could be a good guard. Good handles and stuff.
Yeah, Coach. I'm there. I can help the team. If we have another injury crisis, I'm there.
What's your free throw percentage looking like?
I have no idea. I don't really get to the foul line a ton. I just distribute. I distribute and play defense. That's all I do.
All right.
And grab
Steve
rebounds.
Nash.
I'm a very good rebounding guard.
Mr. Tony Allen out here, or Steve Nash. How's your Tony Allen. I mean, how's your defense? Are you locked down?
Yeah, I'm good.
You a pest out there? Good. All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, that's it.
As long as I don't have to score a ton, I'm good.
But let's get to work here on Inside the Game. 10 minutes here into hour number one. You mentioned it yesterday, and we were texting back and forth about it. Now, I'm going to kind of give you the floor on this one because I know that you probably have a little bit of a tangent to go on, which, I mean, not me nearly as much, but for you, this one means a little bit more. But the first topic on our list is Man United. Now, we talked about already the coaching search for that team. I mean, just 6 months into having their manager, he's already gone. And so now they're already considering, who's going to be the next one to take over at Man United. Mauricio Pochettino was on that list. A lot of good names. Obviously, you brought up one, but what is it about Man United that you wanted to spout off about today, this morning on Inside the Game?
So the same issue that we talked about for Man United is actually coming true. So they actually appointed Michael Carrick as the caretaker manager for the rest of the season. And like we said, there's a big issue with a lot of that list because half of those managers are international managers, and they're going to want to manage the World Cup. That's everyone's dream up at this point. But this is why I love it. So Manchester United will play 40 games this year. And for the people at home, 38 of those are the league games, the Premier League games. And they got knocked out in the Carabao Cup first round to Grimsby Town. And then they got knocked out in the first round in the FA Cup to Brighton. So they only played 2. They're not even in Europe. It's awesome. But I don't know about the people at home. I don't know about where the majority stands. But I absolutely love the downfall of Manchester United. I love it. A massive club like this, a stubborn club that doesn't want to update anything, doesn't want to do anything the right way. I just love it because we had to go from Fergie time every single time to they can't even win games. They can't buy players properly, or they buy superstars and it just sucks. So that's why I love the downfall of this club. It's deserving. So they can't even upgrade the stadium properly. They can't upgrade their facilities properly. They can't upgrade their locker room properly. So it's awesome. And you have all these great players, and most of them now are in the media realm, and they're so hypocritical of every single thing that happens because, like Roy Keane and Gary Neville, all those guys, like, they did the same stuff that a lot of these players have done in previous time or are doing currently, and they still say like, "Oh, that's wrong," even though they did the same dirty challenges, the same throw-in player. Like, for instance, Gabriel Martinelli did, who in the moment a Liverpool player gets hurt and then inches his way back on the field so he can stop play, gets a little upset, tries to put him off the field, and that's a total debacle and everything. But Neville literally did the same thing a couple of times in his playing career, but he says, "Oh, that's a disgrace to the game." Buddy, you did it. And I think my favorite part is Manchester United has such like a media protection from everybody. No one gets mad at them. You can't get mad at one of their players. Liverpool too, by the way. That's something for another day. But I just love the downfall. It's so awesome to see, and especially a club that spends almost as much money as everybody else, and they can't get it right. They have such whiners. They have such crybabies for year in and year out. Ever since I've watched, and I've watched since 2013, and they've had crybabies, whiners all over the place. And it's just so great to see that they're just sitting in mediocrity. Oh, and by the way, my other favorite part is a couple of years ago under Eric Ten Hag, they're going to be, "Oh, we're back. We're finally back in the title race. We're nipping at the heels of Arsenal and Man City. It's such a cute story." And then guess what? It's just been
a free fall. Exactly that.
That's just, everyone's got that team, no matter what sport, where they're just so dominant, and then once they fall off, it's just cinema. Like the moment Ohio State falls off, like I'm kind of seeing it with Alabama, but the moment Ohio State falls off, oh, it's gonna be so cinema, so cinema.
Oh, everybody's about to pile on. It's going to be everybody's favorite day whenever that happens. I don't believe it's going to happen. I think there's a program. If there's one program in America that's been able to seamlessly pass off the job from one coach to another, I think it's been that program. Can't say the same about Michigan. But, what I will say is that hopefully the day will come. Here's my thing about Manchester United. And I did see this the other day, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this too. It's becoming clear to me just how fragile their ego really is as an organization, right? And like that, we're seeing this play out live and in person. Like they just sacked their manager. They're looking for someone who could potentially lead a turnaround. Obviously, we know what their history is, but it just seems like ancient history at this point. And the one thing that I saw yesterday, Man United is set to play their fewest games since World War II in the 25-26 season. Just 40
World War One.
matches. World War One. Sorry, that is.
1914.
Yeah, a total they haven't reached since 1914-1915 due to early exits in both domestic cups and no
awesome.
European football. That's wild to me. And this is a concept that I think maybe not a lot of people are used to hearing. Like, you set how many matches you play. You get to decide outside of league play, right? You have a certain amount of league games that you obviously have to play, but outside of that, you kind of set your schedule. And we see this in American sports too, right? Sometimes certain programs will schedule, Panera Bread for week 1, and then they'll schedule Jimmy John's for week 2. Like that's how that goes before you get into conference play, because you want to like show the country just how good you are. Now, mind you, you're doing it against, the deaf and the blind, but this is bizarro land to me. There's a story, and I was reading it a little bit earlier, about a gentleman who was, I believe, 2 years old the last time that Man United played that few of games. He's still alive to this day, which is just amazing to me. But he's like, he hasn't played. Yeah, there was a story I was reading. Now I'm blanking on what his name is. I'll go double check what his name is.
Plus,
but
then
that's what I'm saying. My man's
plus.
He lived through World War I, World War II. I mean, he's seen all of it. But what does that tell you, I guess, when you hear about Man United only playing 40 games? I was reading an article from the BBC that said that, again, they were talking about just how fragile this organization is. But what does that mean to you when you read something like that?
That it's awesome. That's really what it means to me. No, it just shows that the club is just in a really bad spot, and they just can't get it right. And another thing is as an Arsenal fan, that is, when Arteta was first there, his first year and a half, it was horrible. But the only difference between Arsenal and Manchester United in that time was the Cronkies were like, hey, let's just see what happens. You're a young coach, you're a bright mind, and let's rock with it. It's not like we're getting relegated or anything like that. We're not where we want to be, but let's just see what happens. And I think also COVID played a massive role in that. And, when they finally, gave him the ultimatum, Arteta got things rolling, and you see what it is now. And it's also worth mentioning that United has the worst net spend out of any Premier League club in the last 5 years, which makes it even better. And for the people at home who don't know what net spending is, that's your outgoing transfers and incoming transfers. And they clearly can't. They buy at a really high rate. They buy them for a crazy amount of money. Anthony, 100 million. Oh my Lord, that's so awesome. He was so bad. And then they can't sell him for nearly what they bought him for. But I would just say that a club that, growing up was so dominant, constantly winning, Premier League titles, they were making deep runs in the Champions League. Then even when they were kind of bad, they still somehow found a way to win a trophy, whether that's a Europa League, an FA Cup, a Carabao Cup. They always seem to find a way. But this year they're not going to do anything. And I'm tired of hearing this, even though Arsenal finished second and didn't win anything, United still had a better season because they won the Carabao Cup, because they beat the Little Sisters of the Poor all the way up to the final. So
Right.
it's just awesome to see. And I just love that a club with this magnitude, with so many media personalities, so many egos, so many player egos, that it's finally shown up. And everyone also I got to put this out there. I feel so bad for the Manchester United fan that has spent over a year saying he won't cut his hair until Manchester United has won 5 in a row. I don't know what day this guy is on, but I feel so bad for this guy. Like, he might die of hair, like too much hair. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing, but I feel like that could be a possibility. I've never seen anyone pass away that way, but I feel like at some point he's got to cut his hair because it might be life-threatening. And
Do we have a picture of this guy?
I can find it.
Do we have an update?
No,
Let's see if we can get an update.
It is just, it's just so awesome. But I feel bad for that guy. I feel bad for that guy because he's dedicated to it. He's got a couple of shampoo, hair conditioner commercials, NIL deals, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I feel bad for this guy.
Well, at least he's made a something out of it for himself. For those who are curious, 41-year gap between titles. which is by far the most in the history of Man United. Of course, by the end of the season, it'll be 13 years since United last won the league. Half the gap between,
He's on
uh,
465. Ugh,
oh
poor
man,
guy.
ooh, yeah. So, and obviously their position in seventh in the Premier League is not like the end of the day, but you talked about it, right? Like there's a certain set of expectations with Man City or Man United, that is, and they're not living up to that. And I guess the question mark is it really, in my mind, Ryan, it comes down to ownership at this point. It comes down to the people making the decisions on who to put in those places. And so that's really what it comes down to. And you see that with organizations when they struggle, right? They overcompensate, they go above and beyond to get players that really maybe are not great fits, but they feel like they need to. And the other thing is like Man United, it's one of those things when you're so successful for so long, you create a destination that just kind of builds off of itself. Like we see so many franchises that once you have a certain level of success, people just want to come play for you. They want to be a part of it. They want to be in the scene. They want to be, in the mecca, if you will, which is, I think, early on, obviously back, during when my dad was young, like that's what Man United was in a lot of ways. And, we look at that in certain American sports and different franchises, like they created a destination. Now, I mean, who genuinely wants to go out of their way to play for an organization like that? There's a reputation that
People who
follows
want
this
money.
team. That's it, right? It's almost a cash grab, and I feel the same way, in American sports. You talk about the Jets or the Browns or any of these organizations or these
The
teams
Lions
that
used to be this way.
the Lions used to be that way. Yeah, you take the money. You're like, I'm going to play out my contract, and that's it. I don't really have a lot of high expectations for what this experience is going to be. But the truth is if it pads my pockets, it pads my pockets. But, I mean, what's the solution in your mind? I think obviously it's ownership, but what stops the bleeding? Not that you want to stop the bleeding. Okay, I'm not saying you want to stop. You very much enjoy the futility of one Man United, being an Arsenal fan yourself. But I mean, I'm going to put you in that chair. How would you fix it?
I would say so. Obviously, the Glazers have a massive role in it, and I also think
Yeah,
this is what happens when you have America. This is another issue when it comes to European soccer. Is a lot of the American owners, the billionaires, are starting to take over there. And you
yeah,
look at a Todd Bowley who owns Chelsea, owns the Dodgers. I'm sure he owns a bunch of other things. You look at the Glazers, who own the Tampa Bay Bucks, that also own Manchester United. You look at Arsenal, who the Kroenkes own not only the Rams, but they also own the Nuggets, the Colorado Avalanche, the Colorado Rapids, and Arsenal. And I would say the again, I
can
don't
you bring
know,
Brady out of retirement?
take
Can he play like striker or something?
but baby. So
Knows a lot about football. I don't know about football, but Anyways, go ahead.
I don't know if the Glazers have a not a sibling, but a young child, not a young child, but a of the family, the parents, if they have a child, if they want to eventually, obviously this child would be like 30 or 40 at this point, if they want to take over. And I'm looking at the Arsenal model of how they change things. And Stan was the old man. Stan was in charge of everything. But the thing was, when the downfall was happening for Arsenal, what was peaking at the right time? The Rams won a Super Bowl. They just got Matt Stafford. They just traded Goff, so they got Matt Stafford. They won a Super Bowl. The Colorado Avalanche won a Stanley Cup. And then Jokic and the Nuggets weren't far off. And that's kind of what was happening. And right after, I would say, the Rams won the Super Bowl, they appointed their son Josh to really start to run things over there. And that's what ultimately happened with Arsenal. That's how they change things, is they put someone who actually wants to be there, has the time, also has the energy and the youthfulness to run things. And that's exactly what happened. They put Josh kind of in charge, oversee things. Obviously he didn't make the decisions for everything, but he's kind of overseeing things and seeing how things run, and you kind of have him in these spots now. And you put Josh in these roles, and guess what? Everything's starting to go up. You're seeing, obviously, Arsenal hasn't won a trophy since that, but they're constantly in the discussion to win the Premier League, constantly in discussion to win trophies, constantly in this discussion to win the Champions League. But that's what you got to do if you're the Glazers. You got to somehow either sell the club, which Manchester United wants because they can't update anything, or you just have one of your kin run it for you. And I also say this: the moment I think everyone knew Manchester United was cooked was when Cristiano Ronaldo came back and said, "This hasn't been updated. This hasn't been updated. This is the same thing from when I left, which was late 2000s." And
Yep.
he comes back in the 2020s and nothing's updated since he left. You're telling me out of all the money you have, you can't update anything in 10 plus years? I think that's the moment everyone kind of knew they were cooked. But real quick, the Manchester United fan, this is what he looks like now.
Ooh, okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's growing out. I thought maybe if it was like wavy or flowy, like that'd be all right. But man, that is how you clean all that?
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
Frank
hat.
Alette, by the way. Yeah, he can't wear a hat. Yeah, that's Frank Alette, but he's so dedicated to all of this. Like
He has a built-in hat.
yeah, 465 days and hasn't cut his hair.
Man. Oh,
A little
boy.
rough.
What? I mean, you could put it in braids or something. I mean, who am I thinking of that didn't cut their hair for like years and years? You remember Troy Polamalu?
Yeah, but he was cool though.
He was cool. He was cool.
He was a
Yeah,
safety,
I'll
and
give
he
you
was
that.
just hitting people at fast speeds, and his hair was just in the wind as he did it.
Ugh.
Did you
Yeah.
ever hear Pat McAfee say when they were trying to run a fake punt or a fake kick in Pittsburgh, and McAfee was the holder for the kick, obviously, and he was so hyped that he was going to score this touchdown in front of his family, and he's looking there, and he's looking, and he calls it off. He goes, "Polamalu's coming. I'm not getting killed by him. We're waving it off." And then his coach comes over and goes, "What did you see?" He goes, "I saw Polamalu he was getting ready to run through. We waved it off. Waved it off."
Mike Tomlin even said that was the greatest defense he's ever had in his time at Pittsburgh, and I don't doubt
He's
it
falling off all right.
for a second. I mean, he's still good, but he's woefully 500. He's woefully right in the middle. That's just kind of the Mike Tomlin way. But moving on to our second topic here today, it's a new age, Ryan. It is a players-centered age. Players, in a lot of ways, kind of get the say, and if they all come together, kind of like we see unions, players' unions, when they demand things, they're going to get it, right? Because the players are the reason why we watch. The players are the reason why we invest in jerseys, why we go see games, why we spend all the money that we spend. And, the second topic here today, and I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about it. Real Madrid fired Alonso. He's out at Real Madrid, and the players won out. And that's kind of been the consensus around that situation, is that the players wanted him out. So he's out at Real Madrid after 34 matches, out at Real Madrid, boasting a 24-4-6 record during his time there. That's ridiculous. The former Real Madrid player has said to have mutually parted ways with the club yesterday following the Super Cup final loss to Barcelona. This is the 13th manager to last under 100 games in charge of the club since 2000. So that's a Ferris wheel of coaches. Former player Alvaro Arbeloa, is now the full-time manager for them. So I don't know. You look at the numbers, it's pretty damn good. He gets all the way to the final. Obviously, he loses to Barcelona, but this is a head scratcher for me. You're talking about Man United. I mean, I guess there's a certain ego, there's a certain all that stuff involved, but why? I mean, I guess that's my main question, Ryan. Why?
Their owner Florentino Perez is he's power hungry. He wants all the decisions, but he doesn't want to be the one on the touchline deciding things. So it came out a couple weeks ago that Xabi Alonso, for the people who don't know, like he did an unbelievable job at Bayer Leverkusen. Like he did not lose a single match in the Bundesliga play a couple of years ago and won the Bundesliga without losing a game. And Bayern Munich did not win the league, which, for the people who don't know about the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich has won, I think, like out of the last 20 Bundesliga seasons, they've won 18. I know Dortmund's won 1. They should have won 2, but they choked so hard in the final game, benching Jude Bellingham. It made no sense. But Bayer Leverkusen wins it, obviously. And obviously, Bayer Leverkusen has been gutted ever since, he left. Their whole team is pretty much gone. But he did a phenomenal job. And he's a really brilliant, has a really brilliant mind. And I know where he's going to end up next season. I'll tell you after my little spiel here. I know where he's going to end up. But he did a phenomenal job. And what came out was he needed, and Real Madrid has needed it for a handful of years, ever since the midfield three of Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, and why am I blanking on the other name? I'm blanking. I forgot who the other midfield three was, but during that Champions League run, but it was unbelievable that midfield three. But they've been missing it ever since. And he needed a progressive midfielder, and what that means is a player that can pick up the ball deep in his own half and progress the ball up the field with ease, like a Sergio Busquets type. And that player happened to be Martin Zubamendi of Real Sociedad, Spanish international, who Xabi Alonso is from the same area in the Basque Country with Martin Zubamendi, and he knew everything about it. But the thing is the ownership saw that, and they didn't think it was, because it wasn't the sexy transfer, it wasn't the sexy deal. It's the offensive line. It's like spending money on an offensive lineman and an offensive line. That's basically what this boils down to, and it just didn't happen. And Alonso was pretty ticked about that. They wanted an attacker. They wanted that sexy deal that sells jerseys. And and Alonso was really upset about that. Where does Zubamendi end up? Ends up at Arsenal. Thank you, by the way, Florentino. Really happy that you didn't do that. But you just see that there's a couple of decisions behind the scenes that Xabi disagreed with and didn't like. And then you think of all the egos on the team, Vinny Jr., Mbappe, all those types of players that, just get in the way. And we saw what happened with PSG when you get rid of Messi, Neymar, and Kylian Mbappe. You win it all. So, again, it's just too many egos in Los Blancos at the moment. And Xabi Alonso is a really good manager, and I know where he's ending up. Xabi Alonso will end up at Liverpool by in the summer. That's where Xabi Alonso is going to end up, because Arne Slot is going to be out. When you spend £500 billion on players and you can't get it done, like they're 13 points off the pace right now in the Premier League, Slot's going to be out. And you also think Alonso, former player at Liverpool as well, he was kind of in the running for when Jurgen Klopp ultimately, stepped down at Liverpool a couple years ago, that Xabi Alonso was going to be that manager. But Xabi Alonso will be at Liverpool next summer. I'm putting it out there right now. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. And I think Liverpool's dumb in that sense. But he's going to be out. Or he's going to be in Liverpool, and Arne Slot's going to be out. He's already kind of walking a fine line at the moment right now. But when you spend £500 million and you can't get the deal, you can't get the job done, you're going to be out. And Xabi Alonso, again, I don't want Xabi Alonso to be at Liverpool, but he's going to be there, and he's going to be a great fit for them, and Liverpool will be back to where they need to be.
And I think for Xabi Alonso too, it's a matter of just kind of accepting, like, hey, this isn't on my shoulders, right? I mean, this club has a history of hiring ego managers and firing brainy tacticians, which is, I think, exactly what Xabi Alonso is. But staging media circuses in the middle of the season in order to get their manager out, it doesn't make any sense to me. But clearly, he's going to land with someone, and he's going to continue to have success. I was thinking Man United. Obviously, he was on that list that we were talking about. You tend to think otherwise, that he probably will not go there, which obviously you talk about a circus. That's exactly what that is. I mean, I don't know why you would go from one circus to another. It just doesn't really seem like the right choice. How about, I'll give you another one, though. How about Juventus in Italy? Would he go manage Juventus? By the way, Weston McKennie, another goal yesterday. So just giving you guys a heads up here.
I made that graphic, which we'll get to in a little bit. Juventus, again, that'd be another good fit for Juve. I mean, Xabi Alonso, wherever he goes, whatever club is getting him, they're getting a bright mind. I almost said Real Sociedad yesterday to my dad, but obviously, they just hired the American over there in Sociedad, so he won't be going to Sociedad anytime soon. But no, I think Juventus would be a good fit. Maybe Weston McKennie ends up getting his contract renewed there. I don't know, but I still think he ends up at Liverpool, to be honest with you. Unless Arne Slot somehow revitalizes his career and somehow Liverpool looks really good in the second half of the season, you can kind of build off that. Maybe he makes a deep run in the Champions League. But unless Arne Slot does that, I still think Alonso ends up in Liverpool. But yeah, again, good fit. I think it'd be a good fit still with Juventus.
What about returning to the Bundesliga, going back to Germany?
He dominated it, so I don't think he would bat an eye at that either. But maybe at the same time, you wonder if he might want to take some time. That's another thing after,
Yeah,
going
that's
through
true.
what he went through the last 6 months or so. Maybe he wants to take, but again, wherever he goes, he's going to dominate, whether that's the Bundesliga, Serie A. If we even look at Real Madrid right now, they're only 4 points behind Barcelona at the top of the table. They were in a cup final, and they're also in the running to make the round of 16 and skip the playoffs in the Champions League. So it's not like he did a bad job. Like, people at home, he did not do a bad job at all. It's just that he disagreed with the higher ups, and they mutually parted ways. So again, wherever he goes, it's gonna be a really good fit because he's a bright mind and he's gonna do a phenomenal job in whatever country he goes to. Heck, he could even go to the Polish league and dominate. I don't know. I don't even know what teams are over there, or what the
Major
league's
League
called.
Soccer.
But he could do it. Maybe he goes to Ireland, Nate. Maybe he goes to Ireland.
There you go. Or Scotland.
He'll
There's
do good
options
wherever.
out there. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard as a manager when you do have that level of success. I would advise that he just takes a little time away, because the truth is that he found himself in a bad situation, and he found himself in an organization where we've seen this time and time again. Again, I like to do these American comparisons. It's almost like the Dallas Mavericks. It's like they have the smartest man in the room syndrome. They do dumb things.
Okay.
They release a generational player. Okay, not quite the same. I realize manager and player.
That was all staged so you could get a superstar in LA. I wouldn't say it's rigged to that extent. That's all
think it was
that
rigged?
was.
Really?
Nico was just hired in so Silver could say, "Hey, trade your star to LA and then we'll give you the number 1 overall pick." And I said that immediately. I said,
It was
obviously
suspicious.
I wasn't on social media.
It was suspicious.
I wasn't posting my takes on social media so people could say I'm wrong. But I said immediately to my friends, the Mavs will end up with the number 1 overall pick. They'll get Cooper Flag. And then guess what happened? You have the worst odds in the lottery, and you end up with the number 1 overall pick.
Funny
That's
how that
all
works.
So I wouldn't go that far, because we all know, everybody knows that was simply Nico, hey, trade your superstar to LA. You're going to get a ton of hate. You'll end up getting fired. But guess what? We'll give you an executive role in the front office of the NBA. You'll be just fine. But just do this real quick. And
people want to say that the National Football League manufactures parity. I would argue the NBA probably does it far more than the NFL, and for a far longer time as well, because the NBA we all love our superstars, but I think more than anything, the NBA is a star-driven league.
Wait, so you're telling me the Magic, who just drafted Shaquille O'Neal in the 90s, who had the worst odds, all of a sudden got Penny Hardaway in this really good guard? Wait, you're telling me that the draft lottery
you watched the
Patrick
documentary
Ewing to New York? Not rigged?
Wild. Look at you knowing your NBA history. I'm impressed, man.
Because
good work.
it's a really good. It's really cool to follow if you go through all the little controversy, all those little. I wouldn't say scandals, but if you kind of go through all the little rigged draft lotteries and decisions, like Chris Paul wasn't allowed to. That trade wasn't allowed to happen, I think, to LA, to the Lakers from the Hornets, because I think David Stern stepped in and said no to that. So the NFL hides it really well. The NBA just puts it out there. They're like, hey, we know we're not going to say that we're forcing all this stuff, but it's all out there for you to debate yourselves.
The day LeBron retires is going to be a real sad day in the National Basketball Association for most fans, but it's also going to be sad for the front office people at the same time, because, again, it's all built on stars. But anyways, moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the U.S. hosting the World Cup. Very quickly, though, you actually made a graphic about Weston McKennie. You actually mentioned that a little bit earlier. Scored again yesterday for Juventus. Weston McKennie, since the announcement he won't be back, he scored twice in 3 games. Now, mind you, it was a blowout in the match in which he scored yesterday, but 4 goals and 3 assists in all competitions for McKennie. Continues to be one of the highest performers this season. So that raises the main question again, Ryan Glinsky. Why is there any doubt in anybody's mind why Weston McKennie would have his contract renewed? Why he would be back?
Because he's American.
It just seems that's what I'm saying. It seems as simple as that. Like, someone needs to provide me some sort of logical explanation as to why he's not in the running to be renewed and brought back automatically. I mean, it just seems like the common sense approach to this is looking at how productive that he's been and being like, yeah, we need this kid back. Like, I don't think he would go to Major League Soccer because he's still highly productive in the league that he's in. He still very much belongs in that league. But, and I don't mean to, that's the thing. I don't mean to like simplify this. Like I would willing to admit that maybe there's a little bit of nuance behind this, but that just doesn't, that doesn't make any sense to me, Ryan. It just doesn't, it doesn't click. So before we get into the whole US World Cup conversation, outside of being an American, is there anything on your mind that you would think why Weston McKennie would not get his contract renewed? Because honestly, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, no, crickets.
Yeah. It's American. That's literally it. He's an American, and he's doing really well. So why give him another opportunity?
Yeah,
like
fair enough.
And I will say, like, you can look at
they won't hide it. They don't even hide it.
Like, you can look at a couple other examples. Like, you look at Pulisic. Like, AC Milan loves Pulisic. Like, he's a fan favorite. Like, everyone loves him.
Yeah.
And, like, even if you talk about anything with Weston McKennie, even his time at Schalke, when Schalke was, like, again, one of the biggest clubs in the Bundesliga. And I don't know where they are now, but they were in his time there, they were getting relegated. And the fans, like, in soccer culture, if you're not doing well, they camp out. The fans camp out by the parking lot, and they let you know when you're trying to leave with your almost six-figure car or $50,000 plus car. Like, they're gonna wreck it a little bit. But whenever McKennie was pulling out, they're like, "Oh wait, it's Weston McKennie. We love him." So everywhere McKennie goes, like, again, I also don't want people to think we're putting McKennie on this platform like he's the greatest midfielder in the world. He's obviously not. But when you're producing at such a really high rate, and for a big club like that in a big league, you should get a little bit more respect. And obviously that's not happening at Juventus. Like, even Tyler Adams is really loved at Bournemouth. And Aronson right now is doing really well with Leeds, and fans are starting to sing his name again. So it's just the sole fact that I think that he's an American. Like, he's playing really well. Again, well, there also could be a couple things behind the scenes that, people that we don't know about. Maybe McKennie has said a couple things and disagreed with ownership. Maybe it's a mutually parted thing. So, again, we don't know the whole story, but from the outside looking in, it just simply looks like it's an American thing. It's an American bias.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's something that we continue to talk about. And I think it's interesting, like, the supporters are one thing. I think the supporters just care what you do on the pitch. Yeah. Like, if you're producing, it really doesn't matter where you're from. I mean, I'm watching these videos of, fans and supporter groups with Brendan Aronson. I mean, they love the kid now. I mean, they're coming up with whole chants. And what was the other one? Oh man, who sings the song? Hold on. Okay, Estelle, American Boy. That's they created a chant around that song in referring to Brendan Aronson, which I agree. And there was even another comment, on one of our videos mentioning that, he's revered, he's loved. So I think for the supporters, it's one thing, but I think obviously for ownership, it's a little bit different. And I think it's just some of that old guard who, again, is just kind of allergic to the idea of an American being their best player. Like, he has to continue to prove himself. But moving on to the next portion of our conversation, obviously Weston McKennie will be on the U.S. men's national team roster come the 2026 World Cup.
Let's take a break.
As long as he's healthy. Let's take a break really quick. We'll come back and talk about that on the other end. You're watching Inside the Game, episode 207. Back live on Inside the Game. Nate Wangler, Ryan Glinsky, your episode 207 of Inside the Game. Welcome back on, everybody who's joining us here today. We had a large viewing audience yesterday. I was actually talking to JT about that a little bit after our show. So over 3,000 live, I don't know about live views, but total views on our podcast just a day ago.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we obviously appreciate all you guys stopping by in your tutelage and continuing to support our podcast. Again, make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube. Keep it locked. You got a lot of fun stuff. Arena League soccer. Obviously, we're building up to the World Cup. Got some exclusive interviews coming up, so make sure you check that out. But the one thing that, Ryan, I think you and I would agree, everything we've been building up to at this network is coming up in a handful of months. And that's the 2026 World Cup.
Yesterday was the five-month mark.
And when we talk about that World Cup, the importance of the 2026 World Cup stems from the importance of the World Cup when we first had it here in the United States in the 1990s. All the players that participated in that World Cup, the individuals who still play and follow the game, who were a part of that, who were around that, here in the United States when it first came to our country, recognize what that meant to American soccer. It jump-started the sport in our country. We know it led to the creation of Major League Soccer. It led to American soccer players first going overseas and realizing that they can go overseas. And we had a conversation with Xabi Alonso on our show earlier in season number 1, and he just talked about how it changed everything, the culture, the climate. All of a sudden there's teams and clubs that are just popping up on in different cities on street corners, and they're building these new stadiums, and obviously the MLS. It started really 30 years ago. If you want to talk about high level soccer in the United States, it really only started 30 years ago. Now the game has been around in our country for a long time, but bringing the World Cup to our shores really opened the eyes of Americans, even casual fans or people that wouldn't even necessarily consider themselves fans. It really brought it to light when the World Cup came over here. Changed everything about the American soccer scene. And so when we talk about the 2026 World Cup, and I've mentioned this on social media, and I'll say it again here on the podcast, this is the single most important tournament in the history of American soccer, outside of the 94 World Cup. This is the most important that we've ever seen. And so when I think of, what's going on right now, I asked this question the other day on our social media page, and there wasn't meant to be any undertones. I wasn't trying to take one position or the other. I was just simply asking questions about the feasibility of having the World Cup here. Now, before I go any further with this, I have to acknowledge they had the World Cup in Rio. I mean, how many thousands of people died trying to build the stadium? What was that in Qatar?
Not as much as Qatar.
Yeah, Qatar. I think it was I don't forget what the
thousands,
specific number
5,000
was.
plus.
But in Brazil, I mean, they moved people out of the favelas. They literally relocated entire swaths of the population in order to make sure that the World Cup was able to be held in Brazil. How many was it in Qatar?
Only 8 construction workers passed away during Brazil. So it wasn't as bad. It was more of getting the people
Brazil
out. That was a big thing. And also another thing that I remember, because the Olympics were the Olympics were a couple years after that. Like Brazil hosted 2014. I think the Olympics were in 2016, like the Summer Games. And I remember some people trying to investigative journalism a little bit, where the airport that you get out in Rio, you end up on an expressway right away to get down to the downtown area where everything was. They put up this massive you ever drive down the expressway, you have those big structures to kind of block out the noise. Well, Brazil did that to block out all the poor housing areas for a couple miles or so. So they hide it a little bit. And even if you look at the Super Bowl during the Detroit time, when Jerome Bettis was playing the Seahawks, the Detroit escorted all the homeless out. So everywhere you go, they want to put on the best product, the best show. They want to
Yeah.
make sure that people from out of town, out of country that come in say, wow, they tell their friends, wow, Detroit's such a great place. Nashville's such a great place. Miami's such a great place. But yeah, no, but a lot of people don't realize the amount of, sacrifice, the amount of grueling labor that happens trying to put on this show. Obviously, here in America,
Yeah.
we have a lot of that built already. That's why I feel like
Mhm.
America should host a lot of things because you won't
Right.
see we don't we don't have to build these stadiums. It's already there. So that I do think America should host a lot of things. The other part is the transportation part. That's its own different discussion, but that's
Mhm.
a massive issue here in America.
Mhm. Yeah, so again, to that point, there is FIFA, we know, is a corrupt organization, right? And I don't have to pull any punches when I say that because I think people kind of understand what it is. And I know that there's a ton of sacrifices that goes into making this happen. And when you talk about, the human side of this conversation, it gets a little dicey. Obviously, FIFA is going to make their money. Obviously, it's going to be huge. It's not. The U.S. is not going to not host the World Cup in 2026.
Yeah.
All right, but I think these are fair questions to begin to ask, to try to get into when it comes to what exactly does that mean when it comes to the World Cup being here in the United States. And I post this question on social media. Again, go follow us on TikTok at National Soccer Network.
Oh,
You can
by
see
the
all
way,
of our videos there.
set a new like goal or a new follower goal on TikTok. Because if you kind of look at our TikTok live, we had an 1,000 follower goal before the end of 2025, which we killed. So thank you to everyone that did that. I think we're at like 1,060 at that point. We're almost at 1,100. I think we're at 1,099. So you guys could be the last follower to get us to 1,100 on TikTok. So shout out to you people. But did a new like goal or new follower goal. It's now up to 2,000. Let's hopefully we can get there with it before the World Cup. Let's get to 2,000 before the World Cup. That's in June. So let's get to 2,000 right before the World Cup, and that'd be awesome for us. So thank you to everyone that listens to our show. Follow us on the daily.
Get after it. But I'll say this, right? We have to start having some serious conversations, and I'll look at the camera and say this right now. Like FIFA, you gotta pay attention. And I know they released something about a month ago talking about everything that's kind of going on in the United States right now. But unless you're living life with blinders on, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, regardless of what perspective in which you're coming from, things are getting dicey over here.
Mm-hmm.
Things are getting very, very dicey. You look at any major U.S. city, whether that be obviously Minneapolis, like we just saw recently, whether that be Chicago, whether that be any other major city across the United States, there's kind of a culture of fear right now. And the truth is that people are afraid to leave their houses. And, I'll bring it back to a specific example that I know, right? Working in minor league baseball, you get to see a lot of different people from different walks of life. That's something that comes with working in a sport that is predominantly played obviously outside of the U.S. in a lot of low income impoverished communities and impoverished countries. I mean, you think of the Dominican Republic, you think of Venezuela, you think of Cuba. A lot of players come from those areas. And one particular player that I know very well from Cuba, and I won't name him on here, but his parents lived down in Florida. And, I remember having or knowing someone that kind of reflected on a conversation they had with him. And they mentioned how, his parents, again, didn't want to leave the house, still don't want to leave the house, and he brought him over from Cuba and obviously put him up in an apartment, which is far better than where they were. But this is a situation right now where if people are afraid to go out, if this continues, now obviously I don't personally, Ryan, and I don't mean to be a pessimist about our world. I like to think sunshine and rainbows and positive and kittens and puppies. Like the life's going to be good, things are going to get better, things are going to get cleaned up before we hit the World Cup. But that's not reality, right? That's not life. Like that's not actually how things work. Okay. And I'm not a nihilist. Like I am a person who believes that people for the most part are good and that good intentions are great. And I would love to see this thing go off without a hitch, but the question has been asked and there have been people that said, FIFA, you need to reconsider what you're doing here in the US. And now they're not going to. And I know that they're not going to. But we have hit a certain point now in the US where if people aren't willing to leave their house, what makes you think that those same people are going to show up to go to World Cup games? Now, I know that there are people coming from all over the world, but a lot of those particular communities in which we're talking about where we are as a country right now are the same people who don't want to be out and about. They don't want to go to major sporting venues. They don't want to be in big crowds. And frankly, Ryan, I don't blame them. And so when we look at what exactly is going on as it pertains to the World Cup and it coming here to our shores, is that something to be concerned about if you're FIFA? Is that something to pay attention to? And to the people that were in the comment section on that video that I put on TikTok that said, hey, there's nothing wrong. You know, we're the greatest country in the world. There's no problem. It'll go off without a hitch. FIFA will make their money. I'm here to say that FIFA will be okay. The TV deals are great. They're going to make their money. The people in the front office are probably more excited than ever to have the World Cup in the United States, obviously because of the resources that we have at our disposal, right? This is far different than if you're talking about a Qatar or a Brazil or anywhere else. It's a far different conversation because we do have the resources, we do have the stadiums, right? And that goes for Canada. Obviously, Mexico has had their issues, but they still have those, so North America is capable, there again, from a facility perspective. And we've already seen Canada offer to host more games than what they were initially planning to do. And I think the other important thing to mention is, like, this takes years and years of preparation. Like, this isn't something that's just thrown together over a stretch of a couple of months. And so for FIFA, in some ways, outside of the money that they're going to make, I think for the people that are having these conversations, it seems like a kind of a lose-lose scenario, right? You can't just move it somewhere else. You can't just wake up one day and be like, we're going to have the World Cup over here and we're not going to have it in the U.S. because of X, Y, and Z. But this situation that we're in right now is unprecedented. We haven't seen something like this in our country in a long, long, long time. And so what does that mean for FIFA as an organization? Do they reconsider? Do they release a statement? What is it? And I think for some people, I think the solution is simple, that you simply shouldn't have it here. But it's not that easy. And I don't think...
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I wouldn't go that far either. But it's a serious conversation that has to be had. And so all I'll say is we got to figure it out. We have to figure it out. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what from a logistics perspective. And that's not even talking about ticket prices or any of those other things, which obviously you and I have waxed poetic about on this show and on social media as well, just how ridiculous those ticket prices are and how much people have to pay to go see those games. But this situation is unprecedented in what we got going on in the country right now.
I'll say this. I think that the World Cup will be fine in terms of that aspect. Sure, you could look at the Copa America final that was a little rough to watch in terms of people trying to get into the stadium for free and climbing through vents, which caused overcrowding. But that's also CONMEBOL running it, not CONCACAF. So it's not the American people, if you want to say that. I will say this: if the people that don't want to go to the World Cup game because they want to stay in their house, that's fine. I mean, you're missing a once in a lifetime opportunity, really. And I think security will be fine. If countries like Qatar and Brazil could host the World Cup and be just fine, I think the U.S. will be just fine in terms of that. If you want to talk ticket prices, that's a different thing. But based on what I think the amount of security, the amount of enforcement that will be, because look at a lot of these countries don't even like each other to begin with. Like, so there will be an amped up security. And again, if countries who aren't built like the United States can do it, I think the U.S. will have no issue doing it. We can argue about ticket prices. We can argue about how much it costs to even get there. We can argue that. But in terms of, fan safety and all that fun stuff, it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, well, again, it's just something that I think is interesting. It's worth bringing up. It's worth talking about. And, I would like to think that the situation is going to get better by that time. But again, I don't know. And I don't mean to be a pessimist. I don't mean to be someone that is looking at glass half empty. But it's worth noting. It's definitely worth noting. Coming up next, we're going to get into hour 2 of Inside the Game. We're going to talk a little all sports. We got a few things coming up on the docket here today. Talking a little Detroit sports. Is Cade really that guy? Are the Pistons really for real? They're looking like a new team this year, right now in first place in the East. Who are the top 3 most popular Detroit sports figures at the moment? We're going to rank them. I'm going to see what Ryan thinks who the top 3 are. We're also going to talk about potential of Aaron Rodgers retiring. The Steelers just got waxed in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is an old man. He's getting up there. Is it finally time for Rodgers to step away? Talked about he's not going to make any emotional decisions as to what he believes he's going to do. But we all know what he's going to do in the postseason. He's going to disappear into the mountains of Fiji, and we're not going to hear from him until probably next NFL season. And of course, we wanted to cap off the show by talking about the Jaguars reporter flattering Liam Cohen. We've seen a lot of emotional responses, including one from Pat McAfee, which I completely second everything McAfee said, and we'll talk about that more coming up. It's the All Sports section on the other side, here episode 207 of Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind.
Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics,
Letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail.
whether it's a championship win or a legendary play.
NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate.
Call 586-304-4405
And start watching today.
I got to shout out. I got to shout out somebody here. Someone just followed the TikTok page, so now we got 1,100 followers. little call to action, and just like that, snap of the fingers, someone's like, you know what, I hit that follow button. So thank you to whoever followed the page.
Shout out
1,100 followers.
That is his name,
Jay
All.
All.
Shout out to you if
What's
you
up, my
wherever
man?
you're listening.
Yeah, go ahead and drop a comment, Jay. We'll talk about you a little bit on the show if you have anything to talk about. But that was our number one, our soccer portion of Inside the Game, talking about everything in terms of World Cup and everything that's going on in European soccer. It's going to start to get really fun here really quickly. But moving on to the all sports section of our podcast, I saw a post a few days ago that really cracked me up, and I got to go back and see if I can read this because, and I believe I've already talked about this on the show once, but it feels like, and I believe I told you this, we're back in the early 2000s, right? The Pistons are back. The Red Wings are great. The Patriots are back. Now, obviously the Patriots are not who they used to be, but they're back to being good. The U is back. Miami, we'll see how they do in the national championship. And the Avalanche are dominant again. Right, so one by one, like we're just going down the list. This is all early 2000 stuff, right? Like break out the punk rock, break out the Blink 182 and the Sum 41 and the skateboards and the man, what other early 2000s? Beanie Babies? Did you ever have a Beanie Baby growing up? Was that ever that wasn't a thing for you?
Maybe
roller derby,
a couple, not that big of a deal.
You ever been to a roller rink, Ryan Glinsky?
Huh?
You ever been to a roller rink before?
Technically, yes, but it wasn't to do a roller rink. It was when I played traveled soccer. They converted. So when we first started playing there for futsal, it was a roller rink, and then the place realized they weren't making enough money on the roller rink, so they then converted it into a boarded soccer field. So it just became turf. So technically, yes, I have been to a roller rink. Was I there to skate? No, I was there to play soccer.
So fair enough. But
So
when
to
I
answer your
talk
question,
to
yes.
okay, all right, fair enough. I'll give it to you. But it seems like everything that what goes around comes around, right? And we're seeing that, especially in the sports scene right now. And if you're from Michigan, or if you're a fan of any sort of Detroit sports team or whatever, you've probably had this conversation before with older people, with your parents. Like, it used to be a city of winners everywhere. Now, minus the Lions. Obviously, we know the Lions for the longest time were the Lions. But outside of that, you had the Wings winning Stanley Cups. You had the Tigers, who were consistently making pushes towards going to the World Series. Now, obviously, early 2000s Tigers, a little bit of a different conversation. They nearly set the record for the most feudal season in Major League history. They didn't. They ended up winning their last game, which means they narrowly escaped that. But the Tigers were winners for the longest time, especially before the 2000s. And then obviously you loop the Pistons into that. Think about the Bad Boys. Think about the early 2000s, obviously with Ben Wallace and the like. But when we look at Detroit sports now, it seems like the Renaissance has hit its peak. And now the Renaissance will only be complete when somebody wins a championship. Right, that's when it's really like, okay, like we're really back. Whether the Stones win it, whether the Wings win it, whether the Lions figure out a way to kind of pick their stuff up and get back into the mix, whoever it may be. But there are a lot of superstars in Detroit now, and so I'm curious because I had this conversation yesterday with one of my broadcast partners. When you're looking at Detroit sports, the Detroit sports scene, give me your top 3 Detroit sports figures at the moment.
Top 3.
You can go. Let's go 3-1.
3-1. Okay. I gotta go. I would go Amon-Ra. No. I'd go Goff, number 3.
I would agree.
And then it's a toss-up between Cade and Amon-Ra. Look, again, as I like watching the Wings, I like watching Skubal. I forgot about Skubal.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, are you about to leave him off the list?
I forgot Skubal. But at the same time, is he really a face of the team anymore? Because it's very like everything with everything. If you think of the name Skubal, it's everything about off the field now. It's all about Scott Boras, and so I would leave Skubal off right now just because of all the uncertainty for everything. And I can't say hockey because it's hockey. The Red Wings have made the playoffs in 10+ years, and hockey's like it has to be a basketball player or a football player. See, I'm leaving Skubal off.
Dylan Larkin's cool, but he's no Yzerman or Shanahan. I mean, not quite yet, at least, you know.
I'm going Goff number 3. I'm gonna go Cade number 2. I'm gonna go Amon-Ra number 1, simply because of the fact Amon-Ra's got a podcast. He's all over the place. His dad is a big thing, and Amon-Ra's a really good wide receiver. Did he have a good year this year? Not really. In terms of his standard, it was a down year. It was a really good year. He's still an all-pro player, but for his standard, I think it wasn't as superb as we would like. But I think Skubal is – I got to leave Skubal off just because of all the off-the-field stuff right now and the whole Scott Boras thing. I don't really want a player that is on the verge of leaving, and I don't know if his agent wants him here. So I got to leave Skubal off. I have to.
So I'm going to go with Goff number 3. You know, I think he would have been higher on this list before. I think the reason being why he's only number 3 on the list right now is just obviously simply because of how the season went. You know, and right or wrong, Detroit sports fans, and I know we're not the only fan base in existence that does this, they're going to make him the scapegoat in that situation. That's just, It is what it is. Like, if you're the quarterback of an organization, you carry the weight of that organization on your shoulders. There are 2 people that are going to take the brunt of the criticism, right? It's going to be your head coach. And obviously we've talked about, you know, some of the issues as it pertains to what our identity is and going on 4th downs and the stupid decisions and the you know, all the other stuff. but the quarterback is going to be the guy. You are the CEO of that team on the field. Everybody looks at you, and right. So that's why it's important for these organizations. We always talk about franchise quarterbacks, right? You need your guy in order to make sure everything goes correctly. And having a good quarterback, good leader, but also someone who can produce on the field can make a difference, all the difference in the world when it comes to an organization and having success and not having success. And Jared Goff has been one of the best in terms of just a pure quarterback in the National Football League during his entire time in Detroit. But he's going to take a brunt of that criticism when we look at how this season went. And you know what? Rightfully so. I'm not saying he's without blame, but I am going to say that he holds far less of the blame than Brad Holmes, than the offensive line, the banged up secondary. There are a list and layers of I feel like people that we need to go through before we land on, hey, Jared Goff is the problem here. He's not the problem, okay? Everything else is the problem. But
Still
again, just
30
from
touchdowns, 4,000 yards.
that's what I'm saying. So from a Detroit fans' perspective, I'll put him at number 3. Because the Jared Goff chant has died off a little bit. I don't really hear people chanting Jared Goff anymore. Second on that list, I'm going to go Cade for second on that list. He is proving day in and day out why he was number 1. And I remember that draft class, and Cade was great coming out of college. I knew he was going to be Carson Wentz.
Sorry, I thought we were talking. I thought you said Goff for a second. My bad. I misheard you.
No.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Jared Goff. My bad.
What about Carson Wentz?
Basketball.
But
my bad.
That draft class that he came out of, it wasn't really considered a strong draft class. I remember people looking at that going, this isn't a Zion draft class. There's no far and away number 1 in this class. Cade,
Zion.
yeah, but I mean, come on, coming out, Zion was the guy. Now, obviously, Zion, we've learned a few things about Zion Williamson. Obviously, he can't stay healthy. Like, that's the biggest issue why, people probably don't love the kid, obviously in the off the court stuff, but there wasn't a far and away number 1 in that draft class. But Cade is turning himself into a far and away number 1 draft pick with the way he's producing in the NBA right now. He's the face of the Pistons. And when we talk about reviving a portion of the Detroit sports culture that has really just kind of died over the last decade and a half, bringing Pistons basketball back is a big step in the right direction. And I know we don't have the Palace, right? That's the thing I miss about the Palace is I feel like it was a hub it was a hotbed for basketball in the United States. Like, that was the place to be. Now that they're playing at LCA, I mean, I don't know. It's a little bit different. I think it's built for the Red Wings more than it's built for the Pistons, personally.
It is, and to be honest, LCA hasn't had their moment yet, whether that's the Red Wings or whether that's the Pistons, because they both moved in there, and both of those franchises were in the abyss. We played the Bucks. Wow, we played the Bucks in a playoff series there and got swept. Last year, we lost all 3 games at home in terms of that. But I remember, but I don't think they've had their moment yet. We have not seen that moment. Like Ford Field, for example. Ford Field did not have their moment until, granted, it took them like 15 years, but they finally got their moment in terms of the Rams one. But you're right. Now looking back at that 2021 draft, man, there's some good players. There's some good players in it. Yeah. I would say there's Cade's really good, Mobley's good, Scotty's good, Franz is good.
Yeah, but would you agree there wasn't a far and away number 1 draft pick, though?
No.
Like, there wasn't a dude coming out.
I disagree with you in a heartbeat. Cade was number 1, 100%. Cade was that dude.
Really?
Yes. Were you living under a rock in 2021? Cade was number 1.
No, he was great. But I understand that, but I don't think he was
Cade
far and away a number 1 choice. I understand that, but not at the time. We weren't talking about Cade the way we're talking about him right now. Okay, fair enough, but I don't think at that time that we were talking about him that way. Yeah, I don't, from what I remember.
Yes, we were. Cade was him back then. Coming into the Pistons, coming into the draft, Cade was that dude. He was number 1. I watched Cade so much at Oklahoma State because I knew he was going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. A lot of people thought so. Maybe the whole Jalen Green, because he was on G League Ignite, maybe that is what threw some people off in terms of the number 1 pick.
There were a lot of people I knew that thought Jalen Green was a better draft pick.
Hell no.
I'm just saying.
Cade was that dude. Cade was
you're right.
number one.
He is
a
that
lot
dude.
of people knew Cade was going to be number one. A lot of people did. So if we're looking at this draft, it was the perfect storm to not have a number one pick. So we have Cade at Oklahoma State. That's not a blue blood program. Jalen Green, G League Ignite, nobody knew anything about. Evan Mobley, USC, that's West Coast time. Scotty Barnes, Florida State, not another blue blood, but he's a good player. Jalen Suggs, Gonzaga, West Coast, didn't really know anything about. Josh Giddey, Australia, didn't know anything about. Kuminga, G League Ignite, no one really knew about. So in terms of a lot of these players were, not blue blood programs, or they were G League Ignite or overseas. But Cade, I think, was the consensus number one overall pick by a lot of people's measures. Jalen Green was a really good scorer. But Cade did everything. I got to disagree with you, Nate. You can't. No, Cade was consensus number one back then. Everybody knew Cade was number one. Everybody knew it.
Off topic, can I just say that Scotty Barnes is probably my favorite player in the NBA right now? Not necessarily because of how he plays, but just because he's just an absolute screwball.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
I won't
just
say what he is or what he's acting like, but there's a lot of memes about it. You can go find them yourself.
He a little screwy. Yeah, that's for sure. You could probably say that.
I would say
my man can ball.
he's good, but he's got a lot of little.
Yeah. The driveway doesn't quite go all the way out to the street, if you will. But it's he can ball for sure. But yeah, Cade right now averaging 26.7 and 9.7 assists, 6.2 rebounds a game. I think I shared a graphic. I think the only two players right now in the NBA that are averaging. What is it? A double-double, I think, is right now is Jokic and Cade. I think that's the list. I think it's number one and number two. So, and not necessarily in that order. So crazy. So anyways, back to our list. I would say Cade's probably number two on that list, just because I think basketball is seeing a revive in the city of Detroit. And I remember a few years ago when they were going through that losing streak, I was this close to buying courtside tickets because I found I was looking around when they were, that historic losing streak.
Like 25 games, 26 games?
Yeah. Courtside tickets were like $100. Like,
I would have done it.
How? 1,000% I would have done it. I was waiting for someone like meaningful to come in and play them, maybe like the Milwaukee Bucks, so I could go sit courtside and watch Giannis, But obviously
I did that
didn't
last
pull the
year
trigger
for
on
Curry.
that.
Really? My buddies and I bought, because at the time, the Pistons were like, the outside, like there was no shot they were making the playoffs. So we were like, let's go watch Steph Curry. So we got lower bowl to just watch Curry, man. Wow. It was sweet.
Yeah, that's the real deal. I actually just my Emily just had a friend. They were out in Los Angeles for something. They went to go see the Lakers play. LeBron played. So that's, jealous is an understatement. That's always been on the bucket list. Obviously, I was in SoCal, and they were taking 2 weeks away from LA. Of course, at the time that I go out there. Makes sense,
I can't say I've seen LeBron play in person. I can't say I have. That'd be cool. Yeah. I don't like LeBron, but he's a hell of a basketball player. I'll tell him that. I'll tell you that.
I'm saying, like, historically speaking, we can have the Bron MJ conversation at some point on the show if you want to have it. We got to dedicate a whole hour to that.
I was saying, like, once we get to like the dead part of the sports calendar, we may have to turn that into, again, the summer helps a lot because of the World Cup. But right. You get into the dog days of summer, like no one just wants to talk about baseball anymore. Like you get through opening day, you get through the opening weeks. Hopefully we have like a torpedo bat discussion again, because that would have been cool to be a part of the media when that was going on. But we're going to have to open it up. Again, we're a soccer podcast too, so we can open up to Messi, Ronaldo. Where do we think Mbappe will finish on the all-time list? Like, once we get into the dog days of summer, don't you guys worry. We're going to have all these GOAT debates. How far do we think, all these players are currently playing? So I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
You already know people are going to have strong opinions on that Messi Ronaldo. Anytime you talk about Messi Ronaldo, it does numbers on social. Like you just bring up the two, and it's going to go berserko.
You could have one follower on social media, and you make up a Messi Ronaldo debate, or Ronaldo or a LeBron MJ debate. You could grow like 1,000 followers in a day just because
easily, because it's a generational conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so so it's something that definitely needs to be mentioned, and certainly we're going to get to that. But anyways, I think Cade is number 2 on that list because Detroit, it's a basketball city, man. Like as much as Michigan gets disrespected from a basketball perspective, it is a
Lake,
very
Saginaw,
healthy
Detroit,
basketball. Yeah, it's
Grand
huge.
Rapids.
It's huge. Basketball and football are huge in the city of Detroit. So I'm going to say Cade's probably number 2 on that list. Here's where I'll disagree with you, Ryan. I understand that the off the field stuff is probably not great, but I don't think people hold that against Tarek Skubal. So I'll put Skubal at number 1 on this list because I don't think when I look at the Skubal situation, people are not mad at Skubal. They're mad at Scott Harris, right? And rightfully so. This organization is the priority right now is not re-signing Tarek Skubal. They're shopping him. They're looking for options. Obviously, the amount of money that they would have to pay to someone like Tarek Skubal, there's a lot of risk involved there. And as someone who, obviously has talked about this live on air and with other people, and obviously being in baseball circles, like the first thing everybody wants to ask me about, what about Tarek Skubal? What about the Tigers? And it's like, listen,
Rightfully so.
there is good and bad to both of it, right? You re-sign him. Obviously, you get the best pitcher in baseball outside of Paul Skeens back on your team.
Outside of Alex Cobb.
This is well, right, and they offered him $15 million. He played more games for the West Michigan Whitecaps. He played more games.
Oh, where's
was?
Yeah, that's Alex Cobb, bro.
He played 6 games for the West Michigan Whitecaps. Pitched in 6 games for the Whitecaps.
I would have done that for $15 million.
He was our most expensive player outside of Max Clark, who obviously had a $9+ million signing bonus. Alex Cobb was the most expensive player that has played for the Whitecaps. So you're right. Like, you are absolutely right in saying if we can pay Alex Cobb this amount of money, why can't we break out the pocketbooks for someone like Tarek Skubal? But on the other side of that conversation is too, Ryan, we talk about pitchers. Skubal has had his injuries, but he hasn't had that injury. And when you talk about pitching, it only seems like a matter of time. Think of someone like Steven Strasburg. How much did Washington invest in someone like Steven Strasburg? He was supposed to be the truth. He was Paul Skeens before Paul Skeens. What happened to him? Blows out, never the same pitcher, never the same guy. Now, obviously, he was still productive. He was still in the league for a while, but that's one of the main comparisons that I think of.
He had Tommy John in 2020, right?
He did, yeah.
Okay.
And so when you're investing,
every pitcher injury you want to, like, we see kids getting Tommy John at like 16, but he already had that. Can I say one thing real quick about Skubal? So again, something else that doesn't sit well with me is the playoffs. The Mariners, the final game does not sit well with me. He's under 100 pitches, and again, I get the whole pitch count, I get it all, I get the analytics, but I'm sorry. When it's game 5, elimination game, you are 2 innings away of going to the ALCS, something you haven't done in a decade. And Skubal, I don't give a shit, dude. You got to go up to AJ Hinch and demand that ball back. You have to demand it. I don't want to give you $40 million a year if we're going to give you we're going to go again. He pitched phenomenal in that game. I'm not discrediting that. But when the camera shows you, you're smiling, you're all happy. Oh, I made it 7 innings. I did my job. No, dude. You got to go out there. You got to go pitch another 8 and set up, who was our Will Vest in the 9th. Set up Will Vest in the 9th.
Doesn't that mean they have to get a few runs, though?
No, we were winning at that point.
Yeah, but the offense gave him no help. I mean, that's.
But we were winning when Skubal went out.
Yeah, but I get it. But you don't go away from your identity just because it's you're 1 game away from the ALCS. Yeah, he did his part. I mean, this is an organization
he wants to get paid $40 million plus. You got to go out another inning.
It.
JV did it
for the body of
JV did it against the Ace. Why couldn't Skubal do it?
Yeah.
Why do we want to play the analytic game with Skubal? He's the best pitcher in baseball. Let him go out in the 8th, cook like he did the whole time, but yet we put in our bullpen and we got killed and we lost.
He got cooked against the Guardians. Who's to say he doesn't go out there and get cooked the next inning? But I mean, again, these are all hypotheticals.
But why are we playing the bullpen game?
The hypothetical game.
Why are we playing the bullpen game in the ALDS Game 5?
Because it's an organization that built the best bullpen in baseball. That's why.
Oh,
I get it, man. I'm
sorry. If you want $40 million, if you want the best pitch, you want to be paid the best pitcher in baseball. I don't give a shit about this bullpen and this identity thing. You demand that baseball back, Skubal, and you go out there and pitch another scoreless because that to me is the value that I'm getting. You play once every 5 days. I get it. You need an ace like that. I get that. But I'm sorry, you need to go out there and dominate in the 8th. You need to get that ball back. You dominate that ball.
You're only getting them once every 5 days. I mean, is that worth the amount of money that you're giving? And that's the thing about starting pitching. And here's like you think about those mid 2010 Tigers teams, right? What did they have? They had great starting pitching. But here's the thing about great starting pitching, Ryan Glinski.
And hitting.
It's like driving a sports car, right? It's flashy, it's cool, it's fast. You know, the girls love it. Everybody looks at it. They're like, man, you got a great car. The minute you crash that thing, you're done. You're done. Okay? Empty your pockets. It's over. Because it goes fast, but it dies hard. And that's what those mid-2010 Tigers teams had. They had great starting pitchers. Yeah, they could go 7-8 innings. And then what would they do? They'd turn it over to the bullpen. They'd lose. So there has to be a balance here. And for an organization that's routinely churned out the best bullpen in baseball over the last handful of years, yeah, I get it. Now, again, in that situation, understandably so. But I think when we consider the sample size, I think he's still deserving of the money, but can the Tigers afford to give him that money?
No.
That's the biggest part of the conversation. I don't think so either. And it's really tough for people to accept that. Because, again, they just look at it from a production standpoint. He's been amazing. He's the best pitcher in baseball. I truly believe that.
Just for context, he went 6 innings. He didn't go 7 innings. He went 6. He went 7 in the other game. Nate, I know you're a big baseball guy.
You got 3 innings to turn it over to the best bullpen in baseball.
Skubal's got to go again. Skubal's got to go again. He's got to go 7th, and you go Finnegan 8th, you go Vest 9th. That's what you do.
All I'm saying is that he's not the reason why they didn't advance to the ALCS.
I'm not saying it's the only reason, but if he wants that money from the Tigers organization, I'm looking at this, and I go, if I'm Tarek Skubal, if I'm a competitor, I go up to AJ Hinch, go, you're not taking the ball away from me this inning. I'm going one more, and then you can take the ball out of my hand. If Verlander again, I know different time. I get it. Different time.
Different
I
era,
understand that. But it's Game 5 of the ALDS. You're a couple innings away, 3 innings away. You demand that baseball back, and you go out there and pitch another one. If you want that type of money, you gotta go out there and give a historical performance. I'm tired of in this day and age of sports, of whether it's college athletics, pro athletics, we are giving lumps of sums of money for not historical production. Why are we giving Ty Simpson $6.5 million? Because
not historical production. What are you talking about?
He's
a 2-time Cy Young winner.
He needed to go 7 innings plus.
Right.
He needed to go 7 innings plus.
He's a 2-time Cy Young winner. How many people have won 2 Cy Youngs in their career? I think,
but he doesn't do it in the playoffs. Doesn't do it in the playoffs.
What do you mean he doesn't do it in the playoffs? He did 6 innings is plenty.
No, it's not in Game 5. No, it's not. You got to go 7 plus. He gave up 2 hits.
You have the best bullpen in baseball. You have the best bullpen in baseball.
The bullpen sold in the next inning.
How many innings did we go into in that game?
15. The bullpen
so I think
sold.
The bullpen did their job. I think the bullpen did their job.
They didn't see the game out.
15 innings, dude. We literally threw out Tommy Canely at the end because we didn't have any other options. We had no other options.
The bullpen didn't do their job. The bullpen sold in the end.
So none of this is on the shoulders of the offense.
I'm not saying it's solely on the offense, but if you're Skubal and you want the best pitcher in baseball money, you go another inning. You 100% do. Because if Verlander goes a complete game, let me find JV's stat line in that Game 5 of the ALDS. Again, he sold in the World Series a handful of times. But no, you have to. If you demand that money, you go out and go another inning in the playoffs. Because I don't give a shit what you do in the regular season. I don't, because that's where you make. The Tigers have graduated in terms of we make our money in the postseason now. We've made the ALDS Game 5 twice. We go out and make our money in the postseason, and he hasn't done it twice. He sucked in against the Guardians. He sucked. He didn't suck, but he didn't go the full. He didn't empty the tank. I don't think he did.
I just gonna have to agree to disagree, man. I think if there's anyone who's been more consistent in baseball from a pitching perspective, again, outside of Paul Skeens, you point him to me. I mean, Tarek Skubal has been that, and so I don't think it's on him, man. I think it's on Spencer Torkelson. I think it's on Riley Green. I think it's on Javier Baez. I think it's on those guys. I think it's on these bats, this young group of players that we have heralded as the future of this Detroit Tigers team from a bats perspective that simply could not get it done. That is, and again, they got hot at the right time. Cool, great, awesome, wonderful. They couldn't get it done when it mattered the most. I don't, the fact that people are willing to point at pitching as to why we didn't get to the next round
that's the only
is
thing
beyond me. Okay, fair, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't think all this comes down to just the fact that he didn't pitch an extra inning. And I mean, 6 innings is plenty in my mind. And
not if you
again,
want to be the best pitcher in baseball.
The bullpen brought it to 15 innings, dude. The bullpen brought it to 15 innings. You can only do so much.
The bullpen sold. They were winning when they took Skubal out. Like,
they gave up 1 run.
It's
one
you're
run.
winning at that point. The bullpen sold. What? Like, am I not going to say the
in
bullpen
8 innings?
sold?
They gave up 1 run in 8 innings. What is that ERA if you give up 1 run in 8 innings?
I don't know. You're the baseball guy.
Yep.
Don't you know? Don't you have the stats? I don't do baseball.
It's not quite 1, but it's slightly over 1.
If he wants that money, he's got to prove it in the playoffs, and he hasn't done it.
Let's agree to disagree on this one. So I'm going to go Goff, I'm going to go Cade, and I'm going to go Tarek number 1. I just think they're going to want to burn that organization down if he doesn't end up re-signing with the Tigers. And again, rightfully so. People are going to be frustrated, but I think that there's a lot of risk involved, and I think maybe sometimes from a casual fan perspective, we don't tend to think about that part. But let's take a quick break here. When we come back on Inside the Game, we're going to talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Is this it? Is this the swan song for Aaron Rodgers? Is he done in the National Football League? That was the focus of the conversation, obviously, after the Steelers loss. And then we're going to dive into a little bit about the Jaguars reporter. Flattery, not necessarily the job of a journalist, but Pat McAfee had a very explosive response to the other journalists that came out and objectified over the words that were said in that press conference. And I tend to agree with Pat Mac. So let's take a break, talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, talk about that story. And then do you have a question of the day, Mr. Ryan Glinsky?
Yep.
We do. So let's get to that on the other side here on Inside the Game.
Are you ready to create unforgettable moments for your audience? NSN offers professional live streaming and full broadcast services tailored to your needs.
From high-quality production to exceptional coverage,
We ensure your game or event becomes a spectacle to remember. Book your next game with us today
call 586-304-4405 to schedule your broadcast.
and let NSN bring the action to life like never before.
Back live on Inside the Game, episode 207. Nate Wangler, Ryan Glinsky. Got a few more things to get to here today before we get to our question of the day. But the biggest question on everybody's mind, I think, right now as it pertains to the National Football League, we saw the Steelers kind of get wiped off the map the other day in their first playoff game. So now the question is raised, and I think we've been asking this question for the last handful of years. Is Aaron Rodgers on his way to retirement? Will this be all for Aaron Rodgers? I'm forgetting how old Aaron Rodgers is. He's 42 years old. He's obviously the oldest player, I believe, player or quarterback in the National Football League.
Is Flacco older than him?
He might be.
Well, technically, Phillip Rivers is older than him. No, Flacco's 40. Technically, Phillip Rivers would be older than Rodgers, right?
Yes. No, well, so oldest active NFL quarterback is Aaron Rodgers.
Rivers was 44.
So yeah. Yes. So, not, he's still got a few more years. But anyways, I think this is a question that we've obviously been stewing on for a while. And the journey for Aaron Rodgers since leaving Green Bay has been a fascinating one. Obviously, he goes to New York, has the Achilles injury,
I think
comes
the flag
back.
meme, that I love that
The
meme.
flag, and then the first sack, it's like, wow. That's a very Jets thing to happen. And then he goes to Pittsburgh, and late in the season, there's a revival, and they make the playoffs, and there's hope that, maybe Mike Tomlin can go back and win another one, and didn't. Obviously, they fell flat in a big way in their first playoff game. And so now, obviously, reporters were asking him afterwards, how much do you have left in the tank? And I think I'm starting to get to that point with Aaron Rodgers. The truth is that the way he sees the field, and I think the same way about Phillip Rivers too, it doesn't really go away from you. Like he's a field general in the way he operates. He can still huck it. He can still play. But is this the end for Aaron Rodgers?
Sorry, this is a little side note. I just like looking at Rodgers' stats. You go to 2023 and it's 0 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, QB rating of 39.6. Like I just find that funny. Like I don't like the guy. I mean, I guess you could say he's on a little decline. I guess in terms of yardage. I mean, he hasn't thrown for over 4,000 since 2021. I guess you could say he's on a decline. But I would say I feel like he's not horrible. It's like there's still a place for him for a team in the NFL. Like I feel like the Colts should have gone after him. But I get they still have Danny Dimes. I forgot about him. I still forget Danny Dimes is on the Colts. I hope it's the end of him. I don't like actually no because I like seeing Rodgers struggle. So I hope it's not the end of him. I just like seeing Rodgers struggle. So I hope it's not the end of Aaron Rodgers. But we're getting pretty close. Again, I don't know why he's still out there. Maybe he's still trying to chase another ring. Still trying to chase more money. I get that. But at some point, man, like, take care of your body. Think about the rest of your life. Like, there's life after football. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that. Like, once these athletes they're still once they're done with sports, they're not thrown off the face of the earth. Like, they still have, they don't just die. Like, they still have other things going on in life. They still have a family. They still have what's next. So, again, if I'm Rodgers, at some point, I'm still thinking about that. Like, I'm thinking post-football.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I think that's the biggest question about, because we've seen the way that Aaron Rodgers handles the offseason, which is the most confusing thing to me because he does have a life outside of football. It's a very holistic life. Obviously, he's on podcasts, ayahuasca, he does a lot of different things, and not to say that those are distractions to what he does. He's still a very good quarterback, but it is confusing to me that he's not willing to give it up. I think he still wants to chase one more Super Bowl. And I completely understand that. But dude, if you have such this life outside of football, and if you're not showing up to training camps, and if you're not doing all of these other things, what is there to lead me to believe that your heart's still in it? Like, that is the hard thing when I talk about Aaron Rodgers, is his heart still in it? I don't know that. I can't say that conclusively. So, when he says, I'm not going to make an emotional decision, I think in that moment he was probably thinking, yeah, this is probably it. But obviously you're not going to make that choice right away. And we see this with so many different players, right? We saw this with another Packer great, Brett Favre, retires and then decides, I'm not done quite yet, comes back, obviously goes to Minnesota, does all these other things. But to me, it seems like there has been a trend with Aaron Rodgers, and it really started ever since he left the Packers, that I don't think his heart's really in it anymore, to be completely honest with you. And so that's when I think about Aaron Rodgers, should he be done?
So I think he's a little bit in it.
He does. All right. But I just don't think that he has enough left in the tank. That's just me personally. I think he's at an age now where it's starting to teeter off on him. And I just don't know how many good years he has left. Now, I know we had the same conversation about Brady, but the difference is between him and Brady is that,
Brady, they literally,
he's not, he's not real, but they also built, like, everywhere he went, he had the greatest offensive line in the league. Like, they literally, everywhere he went, these organizations are like, we need to put the best offensive line in the National Football League around this guy so that we can protect him because he's the most valuable asset in our organization.
I
And
also think
I just
that Bucks game plan was pretty good. It was just get it, take it, throw it real quick. Good ground game.
That's true.
Steelers
Little West
Steelers don't
Coast.
do that for Rodgers. I don't think.
Yeah. And so
Defense is good.
I don't know. I tend to think that he might be done, but obviously it's yet to be seen. So it's hard to feel bad for Pittsburgh too, right? Because I'm not I don't know. Growing up, Pittsburgh fans were just obnoxious. So I'm happy to see them.
I don't
happy
hate
to
the
see them
Steelers. I've never really had an interaction. I mean, I guess I have a couple friends, but like they're pretty cool about it. So I can't say I hate the Steelers. So
I was just old enough. I was just starting to like come to my senses when the whole Jerome Bettis era of the Steelers was going on. So, I've had my run-ins with the Pittsburgh fans. But let's get to our final talking point here on hour number 2 of Inside the Game. I want to chat about this a little bit. Now, I don't believe we have the video. Maybe we do. Maybe it's something that we can pull up, but there was a moment the other day after the Jaguars' loss in the playoffs. Reporter Lynn Jones did something that a lot of people were not. We don't have the video. That's fine. But a lot of people weren't expecting. I'm sure people have seen the viral video. Lynn Jones, Turpin is her full name, but a reporter for the Jacksonville Free Press, known for her emotional, supportive message to head coach Liam Cohen, which she made after the Jags lost. And she was obviously very flattering to keep your head up. There was no question attached to what he said in that, or to what she said rather, in that interview with Liam Cohen. And I saw the video, and more notably, I saw the responses from people around what this was. And in watching the video, there are different schools of thought, right? And the first school of thought from traditional journalists is that this is not okay. Flattery is not our job. We are not here to flatter the head coach. We are here to ask questions. We are here to get inside the mind of the coach of what happened in that situation. I do find it a little bit ironic when people with mere years under the belt feel the need to comment on someone who's been in the industry for 25 years, but that's beyond me.
Backseat driver?
Yes, but when I look at that video, people say that he was uncomfortable. I don't think he was uncomfortable. I think halfway through the statement, he realized there wasn't a question attached to it.
I think he was just
and
shocked.
You see his face soften up. You see his
what
shock.
Do you mean I'm not getting grilled here?
You see the smile on his face. And so, as someone, obviously who's been around in this for a little bit now, obviously not nearly as long, Pat McAfee, I've had something really explosive to say. And let me say this about Pat McAfee. Pat's the greatest thing to happen to sports, in sports media, in my opinion, since he came onto the scene. I think Pat McAfee is great. I think he's awesome. And I think he's awesome because of really one thing in particular, Ryan, and I think it's the most important thing in our industry. He's warm, he's relatable, and he's kind. Everybody feels like they can get along with Pat McAfee. If there's one person in sports media right now that I'm like, I could sit down at a table and literally have a 2-hour conversation with without problem, it's Pat McAfee. He fits into every circle. He fits in everywhere that he goes, and he doesn't get into any of the other stuff. Sports is his thing. And so McAfee obviously had a quote on this. I'm going to read, the majority of it, but McAfee goes, quote, "I love seeing these sports, quote, journalists getting absolutely buried for being curmudgeon bums," which I thought was great. That's a line. Obviously not all of them, but a large percentage of these things hate sports. They hate what sports are for, which is people, happiness. They hate what sports are for society. It's a unifier. They're political journalists by nature who've preyed on sports because they see it as an easier path to make it. Their days are numbered. My show being broadcasted on ESPN 10 hours a week with zero creative save from any journalism school puppets is living proof of that. That's why they attack me as much as possible. I'm happy the world is starting to see what they truly are. Now, we as a society have to stop taking these particular humans seriously. Their opinions and thoughts are coming from a place of wanting to destroy sports. Now, I don't think anyone's trying to destroy sports, but I will say this about Pat McAfee and what he said. We are entering into an era right now where the old is going away and the new is starting to make its mark. The old way of sports news and sports journalism and just sticking to the facts and just doing everything by the book, I'm sorry, that's old news. That's gone. That's dead. And if you can't take a second to realize that the new age of sports journalism is starting to emerge, then I don't know what to tell you. And whether that be from a play-by-play perspective, well, multimedia, yeah, on the phones, yeah, absolutely.
I realized I have a crack in my phone, so I was like, shit, do that.
But or from a journalism and a reporting perspective, look at the way that someone like Nick Saban has warmed up to the experience of being on a show with Pat McAfee. Do you remember when Saban first got on that show? My man was, he was uncomfortable.
Remember
he
when,
was as stiff gets.
When McAfee was I forgot the song, but McAfee's like in the commercial break, he's dancing, he's getting, and Saban's like,
yeah. What are you doing? Yeah, what are we doing here?
The only thing Saban gets mad about is if you tell him he paid players. That's the only thing he gets mad about, which he did.
Yeah,
you can't get mad that way.
Yeah, but the old is passing away, the new is coming in, and here's the biggest thing, right? And it goes beyond, this is how it should be done. Listen, I see this from a play-by-play perspective. You get some of these kids that come out of school, they do everything by the book. Everything they do is by the book. You could literally copy and paste one in the other, and they sound exactly the same. Exactly the same. And that's problematic. And organizations are going away from that. What, you're not a copy and paste, dude, all right?
I was just wondering if I was going to,
right? No,
didn't know if I was going to take a stray there. I didn't know.
You ain't a part of that. No, I love my CMISH grads. There's a lot of CMISH grads. Adam Jackson, shout out, man. I love listening to that, dude.
He's getting away from the I don't know if you follow him on TikTok or social media, but he's getting away from the copy and paste. Yeah. Like if you look at him, he's got the he's got all the Happy New Year's glass on. Now all of a sudden he's implementing in the broadcast
he's goofy, man.
The movie reviews or like rank your movies like during halftime, which in my previous 3 years of working there, that's never happened. But he does again. The really good broadcasters like McAfee himself do a really good job of, you explain the story, what needs to be said, but at the same time, there's fun in it. There's
human
like
interest.
A little bit of not craziness, but like a little bit of goof, like you're a little bit of a goofball at the same time. And I think also I think McAfee, I just want to say this real quick, does a really good job of not making the moment about him and making the moment about everybody else. Like we have Dan Lanning singing. We have the fans singing all the time. We have every time some guest gets on, like Kyle Whittingham, just because I've seen him, he's the Michigan coach, when he's on his Harley getting on the McAfee show on game day a couple of years ago. Kyle Whittingham, the most muscle coach in the world, and he's on a Harley. Like that's cool. To me, that's cool, at least.
From a play-by-play perspective, I see this all the time. Hey, man. Just shut up and call the balls and strikes. Okay? Just say the words, do the dance, okay, and go home. Sorry, but F no. Okay? My job is not to just be a mouth. My job is to be warm, is to be relatable, and is to bring people into an experience where they feel like they can relate to what it is that I'm saying and relate to what it is that I'm doing, and so that they continue to come around. Pat McAfee on a much larger scale is doing that for sports in general. And that's the same reason. That's why certain people from ESPN don't like the guy. That's why old school journalists are like, we don't like Pat McAfee. There's a lot of people out there that don't like Pat Mac. They think he's a distraction. They think he's a clown. But I think he is the greatest thing to happen to sports. And here's my other maybe bigger point on this. All right. It doesn't take a lot to be kind. Okay, we are existing in a society and a culture right now, and I'm not trying to get up on my soapbox and make some sort of bigger statement about the world, but where kindness is not really on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, right?
No.
We go about our day. We believe we have it all figured out, right? The algorithm has taught us how to think. It just shows us everything that we want to see. We have these confirmation bias the way we go about our days. And so when you look at the situation, right, from a journalistic, this is how you're supposed to do it perspective. This is how we taught, right? ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Maybe it wasn't the right thing to do, but God damn it, does it hurt to be nice once in a while? Does it hurt to be kind or say a kind thing to somebody? Also, we're making all of these conclusions off of one clip. One clip. Who's to say that she didn't ask a question? Who's to say that there weren't 700 other questions asked during that press conference that nobody's talking about? You want to know why they're not talking about them? Because nobody cares. Who cares? Outside of Jacksonville, Florida. I don't care. You know what really inspired me, though? That compliment. That's what inspired me. That's what inspires a lot of people. So, yeah, you know what? Yeah, whatever. We can talk about the way you do things. We can talk about professionalism. Truth is that I know a lot of people who have stepped away from that vein and realize that, you know what? We're broadcasting to people. We're not broadcasting to robots. This is not politics. We don't have to be serious all the time. This is sports. And what sports is it should be a unifier. And now it's more important than ever before. And so I take no issue with her doing what she did. And to the journalists that do, I think it's time for you guys to look inward and maybe start finding a little bit more humanity and realizing what sports is. It's a unifier. And even when Ryan and we just texted about this during our commercial break, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, nothing is, we love debates. We love talking ball. Like, that's what this is for. It's not
even
personal.
Though Nate was wrong.
Like, yeah, okay.
But I'm just kidding.
But we can, but that's what it's all about. It's about people. And so the old is passing away. And if you're ready for the old to pass away, fine. If you're not, well, then fine. Then just go away with the rest of them. But this is where sports is going. That's why we have this show. That's why we do these things. It's to relate to people. This is a people industry. And the only way you're going to get through to people is by being kind, warm, and empathetic. And that's exactly what she did in that situation. So that's the only thing. I wanted to work that into the show because I think it's a really important thing to mention. Now, does that mean it's open season for journalists to just flatter every coach they talk to? No. Obviously, this is a rare exception, and I think it caught a lot of people by surprise. But to people who are all too willing to go out of their way to be like, oh, this is unprofessional. First of all, she has a decade and a half of experience. So until you work in the sports industry for 25 years, which, by the way, to have the endurance to work in sports for 25 years, I hope that's me. I hope that's me. Like I'm near 30 years old and I'm already like, man, this is getting hard. Like this is a daily grind every single day to be able to get up and continue to do this day after day, but I continue to do it because I love it. But I'm only saying this because I'm saying it from a play-by-play perspective. I've been told that multiple times. Hey man, you got to button it up. Hey man, you gotta be more professional. You got to be less. No, I mean, my broadcast coach, again, another one of those people that I'm not going to name names, but he talks about all the time about how there is a lack of color, warmth, empathy, and humanity in play-by-play right now. Because it seems like the majority of play-by-play broadcasters, you can copy and paste one. Now, obviously, there are exceptions, right? I think like Ian Eagle is not a copy and paste guy. I think Mike Tirico is not a copy and paste guy. I think Eric Collins is not a copy and paste guy. Eric Collins is the opposite of a copy and paste guy. That dude is a freak, and they love him. The Charlotte Hornets broadcaster, Mr. Freakout, anytime. That guy. So this is a really important conversation to have. And I think it's a general conversation when it comes to sports and sports media. I don't think that they were thinking about it that way, but that's the reality. And that's where we've gotten it. And I would like to believe that's what we believe here on NSN. It's the way I've always carried myself. And so it's just something that I think if you're working in sports, try to find a little humanity. Try to find that side of you that can relate to human beings and not necessarily be like, hey, book says I have to do it. Who cares about the book? I don't care about the book. I've never cared about the book a day in my life. So it's just, I don't know. It's just something that I thought was worth saying. And I think she was well within her right to say what she said.
Yeah, that's why during my, again, I've never interviewed I've never done like a news package, I guess you could say. And when I did it with with Coach Bronkema. That's why I threw in, Coach, you think I got a shot at playing? Like, I know there's not a ton on the roster right now, but you think I have a shot? Like, I mean, if I'm interviewing a head coach of a sport that I played, and I know that there's 2 players on the roster, you bet your ass I'm gonna ask if I could play, and I'm flexing my 4 intramural basketball championships at CMU.
Hey, man. If you can shoot, you can shoot. It really doesn't matter how big you are. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, absolutely. Let's get to question of the day.
Question of the day. Everybody knows the drill here. Salt Athletic, an official sponsor of us here at the National Soccer Network. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off of that #1 smell-proof cleat bag. That's something that I'm sure my parents wish they used back in the day when I was playing sports, my sister and I. Scan that QR code on your screen or visit saltathletic.com today. But question of the day. If you could watch any matchup in the World Cup, doesn't matter what round, doesn't matter if it's the final, but any 2 countries going at each other in the World Cup, what would it be?
Ooh, as an American, this one's easy. USA-Mexico. USA-Mexico knockout round in the 2026 World Cup, I think is a dream. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're on track for that to happen. Maybe. I don't know. I would have to look at the groups again. But yeah, I've talked about this before, and we talked about Alexi Lalas earlier. You know, he made a bizarre statement months ago. He said that it's the greatest rivalry in international soccer. Now, knowing Alexi Lalas, he wanted to get a rise out of people, right? He was trying to poke the bear a little bit, and certainly he did. He got that emotional response out of people. It's not. But what I will say on this side of the pond, it absolutely is the biggest rivalry. There is no other rivalry or 2 teams that have played each other for a longer stretch of time than the United States and Mexico. It is a petty rivalry. It is a verbal rivalry. Obviously Mexico wants to see, obviously them beat the hell out of the United States, and the U.S. is like, we want to keep you in our shadow, really, because since the turn of the century, since 2000, you kind of have been in our shadow. Now, obviously, minus the Gold Cup, that was not a good look for the United States men's national team.
We had a C
but
team.
I would say,
who cares?
Yeah, right. But I would say USA and Mexico is probably my matchup, if not that, USA-England, simply because I want to see them do the thing. And because when we drew with them in the 22 World Cup, it was like we won and it was like they lost, right? Just because of where the expectations were on both sides. So that was very entertaining. But I'm gonna go with USA-Mexico. I think that'd be awesome.
I would like to see Argentina-Brazil. That's my matchup. Again, we talk about a rivalry. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
South American. And again, I've searched it up before the show. It's been 4 times they've played each other. Currently, Brazil edges it 2-1. There was a draw in there in the group stage. Last time they played was a 1990. Argentina beat Brazil 1-0 in the round of 16. But no, I think that you think of rivalry, you got to go rivalries. I think Spain-Portugal would be a good one. I think England-Germany would be a good one. I don't know any other good. I'm sure there's some other rivalries.
England, France.
Huh?
I don't know. They don't really like each other. England and France. I guess they don't really like each other.
I saw the one in the last World Cup where Harry Kane blew the PK. Yes, love it. He skied it. Something about England in PKs. But I've never seen Argentina-Brazil in this point in my life, and I think it'd be a really good one. I think, again, it would have to depend on the time of the year and what year would happen, but I wouldn't mind being a little controversial here. I wouldn't mind seeing like 2 countries who have a little bit of tension going on in the political scene play each other inside. Yeah. That's just me, though. I think it would be
England and Ireland, huh? Well, England and Ireland.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Ireland's got to get there first.
Screw those guys. All right.
Ireland's got to make a World Cup.
That's true. They have to make the World Cup in order to have that. But Scotland's in it, so I don't know. But no, there's a lot of, and that's the thing when you talk about international rivalries. And I saw a comedian mention this, and it was hilarious when he said it. He goes, "The thing that makes those rivalries different is exactly that. Like they fought actual wars against each other. Like Michigan and Ohio. Okay, there was a border war. There was one casualty." Like, there are reasons why Michigan hates Ohio and Ohio hates Michigan. Like, the people from the states don't like each other. Like, that extends far beyond the rivalry. And the first players to ever play against each other in the Michigan-Ohio rivalry, their parents were a part of that. Their parents were a part of that border dispute, that border war. So obviously there's a history there, but it ain't like, like these two countries play each other over in Europe, and they had a war once upon a time, and there were like, 1 million casualties. It's like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit different from a rivalry perspective than it is over here in the United States. So, yeah, but I mean, you talk about political tensions. I mean,
It'd be
USA
good.
and Mexico. I mean, I'm just saying. So,
Just
a lot of
sounds
fun.
like a social media clip to get people going.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe for sure. But we'll be obviously sharing that on our socials. But we have hit the 11 o'clock hour. Again, we appreciate you guys stopping by as always. Boo. Oh, is that the one you meant?
We know
Oh,
people.
there you go. Oh, no.
But we also have
All right.
lives outside of the show.
So make sure you go and check those out. Hey, man, over 3,000 viewers on our podcast. That's pretty damn good. And y'all continue to come back for more. So we appreciate you as always. We'll be back live tomorrow at 9 a.m. right here on Inside the Game. Again, keep in mind, if you're watching this show right now, if you have TikTok, get on TikTok. All right, watch
Shout
our
out
lives,
J-All.
comment. J-All, my man, got us to 1,100. But get involved in the conversation, all right? We're waiting for your guys' comments. We'd love to work them in. But until we talk to you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m., this has been episode 207 of Inside the Game.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wenger bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real soccer. This is Inside the Game.